The air crackled with a kind of electricity unlike any other, a palpable hum of anticipation and quiet sorrow that seemed to seep into every corner of the vast Incheon Moonhak Stadium. For one night only, the collective voice of thousands sought to reach across an invisible distance, bridging the gap between idol and fan, between performance and an emotional farewell. This wasn't just another stop on a world tour. It was the culmination of a solo journey, an exclamation mark before a temporary but deeply meaningful pause. As the spotlight found its mark, illuminating the figure of Kim Seokjin, better known to millions as Jin of BTS, an extraordinary event began to unfold. What took place that night would leave both the artist and his fans, his beloved army, with a memory forever etched in the history of K-pop. Imagine it, a stadium packed to its absolute limit, not only with screaming fans, but with individuals carrying a shared emotion, a mix of pride, love, and the aching weight of an impending farewell. The excitement was undeniable, but so was the underlying solemnity. This was not simply a concert, it was a promise, a celebration, and a goodbye all at once. It was an affirmation of connection, loyalty, and a love that had become a constant in countless lives. Jin, with his signature blend of charm, humor, and breathtaking vocal ability, delivered a setlist that was both a reflection and a confession. Each song carried a piece of his story, from the soaring hope of Awake to the introspective honesty of Epiphany. He moved effortlessly between strength and vulnerability. His voice filled the massive space, echoing off the steel and concrete, reaching the farthest corners of the stands. Yet even amid the polished perfection of his performance, there was something in his eyes, an unspoken understanding shared between him and those who had followed his journey from the very beginning. He moved with quiet intensity, fully immersed in his craft, but also with the awareness that this moment was fleeting. Every note, every smile, every pause felt like a countdown towards something inevitable. As the concert neared its emotional conclusion, an unusual stillness began to fall over the crowd. The cheers softened, replaced by a hush that carried its own kind of power. Something was about to happen, something planned with the care and precision of a military operation, though driven entirely by love. And then it began. As Jin prepared for his final song, a ripple of movement swept through the stadium. This wasn't the usual synchronized light wave that fans often create. Instead, one by one, thousands of fans began to lift placards into the air. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the boards started to form patterns, then words. Like a sea of glowing stars, a message was being written across the audience itself, illuminated by phone lights and the soft shimmer of army bombs. The result was breathtaking. It wasn't just a display, it was a declaration. Each section of the crowd had practiced in secret, coordinated through fan groups and online forums across countries and languages. The effort required to pull it off was staggering. This was no spontaneous gesture. This was the embodiment of devotion, the organizational strength and boundless heart of the army community. And finally, as the last letters came into focus, the message stood revealed. "We'll wait for you, Jin. Thank you for everything." The words glowed across the stadium like constellations, spelling out a promise. The moment was almost too powerful for words. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as the realization hit, followed by a wave of emotion so intense it seemed to vibrate through the air. Jin froze for a moment. His eyes scanned the message, the corners of his mouth twitching as though caught between a smile and a sob. The confident, witty, worldwide handsome singer the world knew so well suddenly looked fragile. His shoulders trembled as he took a shaky breath, trying and failing to maintain composure. Then quietly, inevitably, the tears came. A single tear slid down his cheek, catching the light like liquid crystal. Then another. For a moment the stadium was utterly silent, thousands of hearts beating in unison, each one breaking a little. Jin's tears were not born of sadness alone. They were the physical expression of gratitude, love, and in belief that he was so deeply cherished. Fans began to cheer, but not with the usual excitement. It was gentler, fuller, an outpouring of love meant to comfort rather than celebrate. It was in that raw, unguarded moment that the line between idol and fan disappeared. This wasn't performer and fan anymore. This was one human being standing before thousands who had walked beside him for years. As the cheers swelled again, Jin lowered his microphone and simply bowed. It wasn't a rehearsed gesture, but one filled with sincerity and humility. When he finally spoke, his voice trembled. "I don't even know what to say. You all prepared this for me?" The crowd erupted in affirmation. Jin smiled through his tears, wiping his face with his sleeve before continuing. "I'll never forget this, I promise. I'll come back stronger, happier, and ready to make you proud again." Those simple words struck deeper than any lyric could. They weren't grand or poetic, but they carried the honesty of someone who truly understood what his fans had given him. Not just fame, but purpose. The night's final song became something more than a performance. It was a shared farewell, a vow wrapped in melody. As Jin sang the closing lines, his voice occasionally broke, but each crack only made the song more beautiful. The audience sang with him, thousands of voices blending into one. "Even if I fall, I'll rise again because of you." When the final note faded, the applause was deafening, yet somehow tender. Fans didn't want to let go. Jin stood still for a long moment, taking it all in, his eyes glistening as if trying to memorize every face, every light. And then, with one last wave and a whispered, "Thank you," he disappeared behind the stage curtain. But the story didn't end there. Within minutes, social media lit up across the world. Hashtags like Jin Cries and Thank You Jin trended globally, not out of gossip or ridicule, but as a collective gesture of empathy and pride. Fans shared clips of the emotional moment, recounting how the atmosphere felt electric, sacred even. Even international news outlets outside the K-pop sphere picked up the story, describing it as a profound human moment between an artist and his fans. For many, that night at Incheon Moonhak Stadium wasn't just a concert, it was a symbol of what BTS and ARMY have built together over the years. It was about more than music or fame. It was about love, trust, and mutual growth. To be ARMY, that night proved, was to believe in something beyond borders. It meant standing together in joy and sorrow, celebrating the person behind the idol, and finding strength in unity. And for Jin, those glowing words from the crowd weren't just a farewell. They were a promise, a reminder that even as he stepped away for a while, he would never truly be alone. Because somewhere out there, millions of lights would always be waiting to shine for him again.